Okay, well, we've got Herald van der Linde of HSBC joining us. He's head of Asia Equity Strategy. Thanks very much for joining us, Herald. It's always a pleasure having you with us here on CNBC-TV18. Prashant this side. The market's been on rocket and rocket boosters, Herald, here in India. We're almost at 20,000 on the Nifty, and I think the sell side at least is finding it tough to keep up, raising price targets, multiples. What do you reckon the near to medium term trajectory is going to look like, Herald? Will the pace continue? Is it going to be an up and up market in the second half as well?
I'm afraid it's going to be an up and up market, yes. And there's a couple of good reasons for that. The global macro is turning in Asia's favor, and India is no exception in that regard. We see that bond yields have come down. You guys were just talking about overnight, they've moved up a little bit. But that's really a day-to-day. If the Fed itself is seeing interest rates coming off, the market is anticipating this as well, and bond yields are starting to reflect this better and better. As we go deeper in the year, that's going to help equities in the emerging markets. I think also, and this is maybe globally more so, that a lot of people are still underweight on equities and haven't really participated in the global rally that we've seen. A lot of people had reasons not to, for example, go into US equities or global equities. At the beginning of the year, we spoke about banking problems in the US. Then there was a debt ceiling. So there were excuses for people to wait on the sidelines. And now that they see that the market goes up and the global macro is in favor of global equities and Indian equities, as I said, no exception to that, you see that gradually they're coming back in. So I think we're going to break that 20,000 level that you were just referring to. Maybe not today, but in the not too distant future, I suspect.
Okay, so I mean, we're not too far away, right? So it's going to happen for sure. Just that there are some in the meantime. Herald, hi, good morning, and thanks for joining in. You've been a long-term observer of what's happening in the Indian technology space. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. The Infosys numbers were not just weak, but the company has cut their guidance. And they've also talked about how discretionary spends from clients have gone down and there are delays in decision-making and in deals starting. Does that raise some alarm bells for you as an investor in the IT space? Or do you think this is par for the course, given how challenging the environment is?
No, it doesn't. It's not alarming in my case. I think this is something that we've, I wouldn't say anticipated necessarily so, but if you look across the region, you see that some of the exporters are becoming careful. In Taiwan, we see some of the semiconductor companies saying, hey, order flow is starting to weaker. We see a little bit coming out of some of the Korean names as well. Not the big semi names there, but some of the other exporters. We know that there's pressure in some of the car markets, auto markets, because of intense competition. And overnight, we've seen some of the US companies struggling with that as well. So I think this fits in a broader picture that global demand is weakening. And of course, some of the IT companies in India are very much exposed to the very similar dynamics. Maybe the industry dynamics could be different, and what happens with their individual clients is here and there different. But the overall demand picture is one of weakening, and therefore you want to focus on domestic-oriented companies, domestic-oriented sectors, and that's banks and the consumer names and these sort of things across Asia and India as well.
But there's a problem here, right? Even in the domestic market, things are weakening. I mean, we have one of the largest FMCG players, HUL, talking about just a 3% volume growth in the quarter gone by. What do you do then?
Yeah, I saw that. No, yeah, that's right. This is something that we need to keep an eye on, because at the moment the export sector looks weaker than the domestic side. But also, if you look at the earnings profile in the whole region, a lot of the analysts are hinging upon good numbers in the second half of the year, in particular in China, to be honest, but in Korea, Taiwan as well, and India to a certain extent as well. So people see an acceleration, and we're now seeing signs that, yes, the exporters are not doing so well, but the domestic companies, I would have expected them to continue to do well now. So we got to figure out what you were referring to. Is that a staple in India that is a one-off, or is that a temporary thing, or is this going to spread into the rest of the region or the rest of India? And therefore, is the domestic story going to be weaker? Now, I was actually in Tamil Nadu about 2 weeks ago. I drove around and I was on highways and then had to go off the highway and going to smaller roads, going through the paddy fields. I was visiting temples there. what that illustrates to me is that the infrastructure story that's being built out in India, that is on its way, and there's plenty of growth that's going to come from that over the course over the next couple of years. So I feel very confident if I look farther into the future, but maybe near term, we're going to see domestically a bit of weakness there as well. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. It will be interesting, an interesting story in the second half of the year.
Herald, we've seen a steady drumbeat of kind of, how do I put it, hot India headlines, right? You had Capital International, which came out with that note. I don't know if you saw it. One of the largest global investors asking the question whether this is going to be India's decade. There have been stories in the Financial Times, an opinion piece from Martin Wolf recently, and so many others. I mean, just a few that I remember. I'm just kind of wondering, you of course been a long-time India watcher, but for someone who is not, I mean, who's sitting, who's never visited, who's not sort of intimately aware with India and the market stocks, what does it do? I mean, does it kind of build momentum to allocate more to a region?
Yeah, yes, I've seen those stories as well. And I do hope for India that this is going to be India's decade. Absolutely. I do also think that India has got big challenges that it needs to deal with over the course of the next decades. And that wouldn't be a surprise to you either. I mean, education standards in part of the region could go up. A lot of people still struggle with daily income. We need to see these things improve. But a lot of the right policies are being put in place. That's absolutely right. But also, I think what we have here is that increasingly people are disappointed with what's going on in China. The feeling was there was going to be a good year in China. That's not happening. And they want to move somewhere else. And India is, of course, a great place then to go to. But I want people to be positive on India for Indian reasons, not for China reasons. And I think that fits that particular story that people are building, maybe sometimes also to justify themselves. There's good reasons to be in India. It might well be this India's decade, but it shouldn't be because people don't want to be in China.
Okay, well, that's good to hear that despite everything, this is going to be India's decade. And I'm sure our viewers, investors, stakeholders are all looking forward to that. Herald, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks a lot for joining in. And
have a good weekend.
Time out.
Enjoy the movie.
Yes, you too. Oh, yes, thank you. Are you planning to catch any of it?
Well, I was just talking with Prerna, which is my my colleague who happens to be in India at the moment, and she told me I should be watching that movie from Christopher Nolan. So I might be doing that well over this weekend.
Okay, everyone's going to be going for
that.
That's right,
yes.
All right, have a good one. Thanks a lot.
I'm not quite sure if I'm in the Barbie kind of audience. I'm not quite sure if that's really catered to me.
Okay, there's something for everyone this weekend, right? Thanks for joining
in. That's right.
All right, that's the word coming in from HSBC. Let's do one thing. Let's step into a quick break. So many stocks to discuss. Movies may come in later, but before that, we have the big movie, right? Infosys, HUL, all of that lined up in just a bit. Stay tuned.